Hello and welcome to our presentation on Tibetan Buddhism. I am Francis.
And I'm Christine.
Our presentation covers two basic topics about Tibetan Buddhism. First, we'll be focusing on some distinguishing features of Tibetan Buddhism. I intend to focus on characteristics that were not already emphasized by Dr. Chan in his lecture on Tibetan Buddhism, in an endeavor to expose the class to a more panoramic picture of Tibetan Buddhism practices and beliefs.
And I'll be giving a short biography of the Dalai Lama, his achievements, his visit to Seattle University, and his hope for the future of Tibet.
Tibetan Buddhism is described as a religion in exile. The religion was forced from its homeland into India when it was conquered by the Chinese in 1950. The Chinese communist regime invaded Tibet with the intention of annexing it to China. Tibetan Buddhism combines teachings of Mahayana Buddhism, a more layperson-oriented, less conservative branch of Buddhism, with Tantra, esoteric ritual scriptures, specialized rituals, and elements of indigenous ancient Tibetan religions, such as Bon. Tibetan Buddhism has a prominent tradition of supernatural beings. Buddhas, bodhisattvas, gods, and spirits populate this richly devotional religion. Bodhisattvas are those who vow to persist in samsara, the cycle of rebirth, in order to assist others in attaining nirvana. Some current Tibetan Buddhist gods are believed to have been adopted from earlier indigenous Tibetan religions. For lay people, external devotional practices are emphasized, even over internal spirituality, including pilgrimages, temple rituals, prostrations, prayers with public prayer wheels and flags, festivals, and funeral rites. Monks and lay people are codependent. Lay people provide material support to monasteries, and monks provide spiritual support through mastery of meticulous religious rituals that they officiate. There are several groups within Tibetan Buddhism. There's the Nyingmapa, founded by Padmasambhava, the oldest sect. There's Kagyupa, founded by Talopa. This sect is headed by the Karmapa Lama. We'll say more on him a little later. There's the Sagyapa group, founded by Gongchok Gelpo and his son Bunga Nyingpo. There's the Gelugpa group, founded by Tsongkhapa Labsang Drakpa, also known as Jedimposhe. This sect is headed by the Dalai Lama. Then there's the New Kadampa tradition. It's a major Buddhist school in the United Kingdom, founded by the Tibetan-born Geshe Kelsang Gyatso. It's regarded by some sects as unorthodox. Now we'll be going into some prominent aspects of Tibetan Buddhism. In Tibetan Buddhism, lamas are prominent figures. A lama is a teacher. It's often a senior member of a monastic community, but lay and married can be a lama. Lamas are learned in Buddhist texts and philosophy, and practiced in ritual skills. The Dalai Lama is like a supreme lama, Dali meaning a Mongolian word for ocean, signifying the profound wisdom of the Dalai Lama. He's the current incarnation, which is the 14th Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, born in Amdo, Tibet in 1935. Then there's the Karmapa Lama, in the image on the right. The Karmapa means one who performs the activity of a Buddha. He's the current incarnation, which means he's the 17th Karmapa, recognized generally and officially as Trinley Dorje, a splintered Buddhist sect recognized as Trinley The Dorje, however. He's an important figure in the Kagyupa group, and he functions to preserve the study and practice of lineages in Buddhism. Tantra are esoteric ritual scriptures. Tibetan Buddhism is heavily influenced by Tantra. It incorporates a wealth of complex rituals, symbols, and techniques. It originated in India, appearing in both Hindu and Buddhist traditions. It instills a magical element and recognizes a rich community of heavenly beings. It incorporates spiritual techniques such as mantras, mandalas, ceremonies, and several varieties of yoga. Tibetan Buddhism is also highly ritualistic. Rituals include prostrations, offerings to statues of Buddhas or Bodhisattvas, and attending public teachings and ceremonies. Temple ceremonies themselves are flashy and loud, involving brass instruments, cymbals, gongs, and chanting. Advanced practices are elitist rituals that only sophisticated adherents can perform. Tibetan yoga experts, for instance, are said to have extraordinary control over their bodies, including conscious regulation of even such automatic functions as heart rate and body temperature. Living and dying is a prominent aspect in Tibetan Buddhism. They place special emphasis on being aware of death and impermanence. Proper awareness should not evoke sadness, but instill the value of every passing moment. Spiritual realities are of prior importance because they have permanence and enduring value. Bardo is a state between death and rebirth in Tibetan Buddhism. It's considered to last 49 days. This is based probably on the Chinese Buddhist mourning ritual of deceased persons that traditionally lasted 7 weeks. Experience of Bardo depends upon spiritual training and life. To an untrained individual, Bardo will seem confusing, and such individuals risk a lower quality reincarnation. Living lamas can assist beings in Bardo through prayers and rituals sourced from their famous Book of the Dead, inviting the dead to sever their unwholesome attachments to their previous life. Preparation for death involves visualizations and meditations on death and the Bardo to ready such individuals for the experience ahead. It can also be achieved by offering spiritual assistance to those dead beings already in Bardo. And now moving on to the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet.
The 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet was given the religious name of Tenzin Gyatso. His birth name of Lama Thondop means wish-fulfilling goddess. At 2 years old, Lama was chosen as the new incarnation of the Dalai Lama when the Tibetan government search party arrived at Kumbum Monastery. In 1940, he was officially recognized as the spiritual leader of Tibet at Potala Palace. At the age of 23, the Dalai Lama passed his final examination and received his doctorate's degree in Buddhist philosophy, also known as Geshe Larampa degree. In 1989, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his nonviolent movement for liberation of Tibet. He is also admired for his concern for global environment issues and his participation in interreligious harmony. In October of 2007, the Dalai Lama also received the U.S. Congressional Gold Medal from George W. Bush for being a leading figure of moral and religious authority to promote democracy, peace, and freedom for the Tibetan people. On October 4th, 1979, the Dalai Lama visited Seattle University where he held a public lecture. He was invited by Jigme Yuthok, a former Tibetan government official, and the late Father Richard Sherburne, an SU scholar. The Dalai Lama received an honorary doctorate's degree from Seattle University as well as a telescope. In exchange, he presented Father William Sullivan with a ceremonial scarf. On March 14, 2007, His Holiness had announced retirement from his political authority in Tibet as he would like to engage himself in only spiritual affairs as the first 4 Dalai Lamas had done. Tibet is not seeking independence from China as they are interested in more development. However, for the future, the Dalai Lama hopes of autonomy, which includes full decision-making power and economic and social development undertakings, and freedom to inherit and develop traditional culture and to practice religious belief for Tibet.